There is a sound you've never quite heard, not because it's far away, but because it hides in the quiet. Thoth spoke of it long ago, not as a word, not even as a chant, but as something only found in the still point between two breaths. This frequency does not demand your attention. It doesn't shout over your thoughts or compete with noise. It waits, patiently. In that soft space where silence deepens into awareness, you don't need to fix yourself or rise to some higher place. What if the shift begins not in doing more, but in hearing differently? This is not a journey of the mind. You can't think your way into it, but you can feel your way back. So for the next few minutes, set aside the need to understand. Let go of definitions, expectations, just listen. Not to me, but to what rises in you as you become still. Because what's been waiting is already inside you. They used to say the world began with a sound, not thunder, not music, just a tone pure, intentional, vibrating through silence like a stone dropped into still water. That sound wasn't just heard, it was felt, embedded into the very fabric of things. And in the ancient temples where Thoth once walked, where knowledge was carved into emerald and stone, sound was never just a tool for expression. It was creation itself. You see, somewhere along the way, we forgot that sound has shape. We started thinking of vibration as a metaphor. But ancient mystics, and now modern science, show something more. When sound moves through matter, it organizes it. That's what cymatics teaches us. When a tone is played into sand or water, the particles don't simply shake, they align into patterns. Intricate, geometric, predictable. Every sound has a fingerprint, and every fingerprint holds a frequency of order. It's not chaos, it's memory, it's design. The ancients weren't chanting to feel spiritual. They were activating codes. Frequencies that didn't just uplift, they rearranged the body, the aura, the reality around them. Chanting wasn't symbolic, it was practical, vibrating the field into coherence, reshaping the invisible architecture that surrounds every one of us. That's why Thoth's writings mention sound not as ritual, but as function. This is not a practice, he said. This is a key. A key not to open something external, but to unlock something within. Because sound, real, sacred sound, doesn't come from outside. It emerges from stillness, from inside your breath, your spine. That place you feel when you're quiet enough to hear it, the hum behind all things. It doesn't shout, it resonates. When you finally hear it, or more accurately, feel it, you won't need anyone to tell you. It will hit something deep, not in your ears, but in your being. And suddenly, things will begin to rearrange. Thoughts loosen, tension dissolves, your sense of being expands like light through a prism. The truth is, there is a sound that's already within you. It's not loud. It's not fancy, but it's yours. And it's ancient. A forgotten tone that knows exactly how to bring your energy back to balance, to remind your cells, your memories, your field who you were before fear, before distraction, before noise. This isn't about listening to yet another guided meditation. This is about remembering a code that was placed in you long before you could even speak. A sacred tone that has nothing to prove but everything to reveal. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to chant in perfect pitch. All you need is to be still long enough to feel the resonance rise, not from outside, but from within. You sit, you breathe, you close your eyes for minutes, sometimes hours. You followed every instruction, from guided meditations to sacred chants. You've repeated the affirmations, visualized the light, whispered to the universe. And yet, deep down, you still feel it, that weight. That stillness that isn't peace, but stuckness. Like your vibration, your energy, your soul is trying to move, but something invisible is holding it back. And maybe no one has said this to you yet, so let me be the first. It's not your fault. This isn't about not trying hard enough. In fact, maybe the trying is what's getting in the way. Because somewhere along the path of awakening, we were taught that spiritual progress is about doing more. Vibrate higher. Think better thoughts. Always be reaching toward the light. But what if that constant reaching is the very thing keeping you from arriving? There's a quiet trap in the spiritual world, and it catches even the most sincere seekers. The trap is this: believing you have to earn your alignment, that you must push through resistance, fight against your shadows, force your frequency to rise. But energy doesn't work like that. You can't bully your soul into expansion. Real transformation is not a conquest. It's a release. Think of it this way: you've been trying to open a locked door by kicking it down, but the door was never locked. You just never used the key. And the key isn't effort, it's resonance. There is a sound A vibration that already knows your name. It doesn't come from outside. It's not in a YouTube playlist or a crystal bowl. It's inside you. Quiet, waiting. And the reason you haven't felt the shift yet might be because you've been chasing a frequency you were never meant to mimic. You were meant to remember your own. When Thoth spoke of sound, he didn't say, try harder. He said, listen. The emerald tablets don't scream truth, they vibrate it. The deeper you go, the more you'll see, it was never about doing more. It was always about being still enough to hear the hum beneath your effort. That's where change begins. Not in the striving, in the stillness. You've been trying to vibrate higher, but what if the invitation was to surrender lower? To sink back into the place before performance, before pressure, before getting it right? What if transformation isn't something you chase, but something you allow? The frequency of freedom doesn't demand effort. It responds to permission. So if you've been stuck, it's okay. It just means your system is tired of pretending. It wants truth now. Simplicity, wholeness. It wants you to stop climbing and realize you were never off track. You were just waiting for the moment you'd finally stop trying and simply listen. That moment could be now. Close your eyes for a moment. Now imagine this. With your next inhale, a golden light rises from the center of the earth, warm, luminous, alive. It travels through your feet, up your spine, expanding gently into your chest. And as you exhale, it carries out every tension, every old pattern, every shadow that no longer fits. It's not just air you're breathing. It's frequency. It's memory. It's your original vibration returning. You don't need years of practice to feel this. You don't need complicated postures or secret mantras. You just need to let the image in. Because breath combined with intention becomes a portal. And golden light, it's not just symbolic, it's the color of integration, of wholeness, of divine remembering. Maybe you've been searching for something that feels real, something that cuts through the noise. You've listened to teachings, downloaded meditations, followed rituals. But what if the doorway isn't outside you at all? What if it's been riding on every breath you take? That's the thing about spiritual connection, it's not always grand or dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it whispers. Like when you visualize golden light flowing into your body and feel, for the first time in weeks, a soft sense of home. Not a place, a presence, yours. Thoth understood this. Not just in words, but in energy. His teachings weren't about escaping reality, but harmonizing with it. And the breath, especially when charged with light, was one of his most sacred tools. Not because it changes the outer world instantly, but because it reorganizes your inner field. And when your inner field shifts, everything else follows. Each inhale is an opening. Each exhale, a letting go. Picture that golden stream again. Let it wash through your chest. Let it spiral down your arms. Let it melt behind your eyes. With every cycle of breath, your energy starts to remember how to sing in its native tone. That's what happens when you combine breath with vision. They create a melody your soul recognizes. This isn't visualization as escape. It's visualization as tuning fork, as a way to realign with a part of you that's always been whole, always been radiant, always been enough. You don't have to try so hard, you just have to feel. So take another breath, inhale slow. Picture that light. Feel it fill you not as an idea, but as a living presence. And exhale, not just air, but anything that's been blocking you from remembering this simple truth. You are already vibrating. You just forgot what it feels like to be clear. There is a place beneath your thoughts, behind your breath, beyond the clockwork of time. It's not far. In fact, it's closer than your next inhale. But it cannot be reached by effort, only by stillness. The ancients called it by many names: the center, the void, the great silence. But today, we'll call it what Thoth once pointed to in his teachings: the 0 point. It's tempting to think of 0 point as a scientific concept, a place of zero movement, infinite potential, quantum rest. But for the soul, it means something even deeper. It is the moment you stop trying to become and start remembering who you already are. You felt it before. That second when the world goes quiet, not outside, but inside. When you're not seeking, not resisting, just present. No labels, no agendas, no stories, just being. That is the gateway. And that stillness, it isn't emptiness, it's presence at its purest. 0 point isn't a destination, it's a state, a frequency, a meeting ground between emotion and awareness, between memory and essence. It's the silence where the sacred sound reveals itself not outside your body, but from within your being. Because the truth is, your true self isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be heard. It waits patiently, faithfully beneath the noise of becoming. And the only way to reach it is to stop reaching. Let go, that's when it comes. When the mind softens. When the breath slows. When all the questions finally give way to the one quiet knowing, I am here. It's in this space that the ancient codes awaken. Not as concepts, but as living tones. Thoth spoke of them not as magic tricks, but as harmonic doorways, sounds that only respond to the frequency of surrender. You don't chant to summon them. You hear them only when your soul is still enough to recognize the echo of its own origin. Think of 0 point as the eye of the storm, the center of the spiral, the place where time collapses and memory fades into vibration. In this space, nothing is added, and yet everything returns. Who you thought you needed to become dissolves, and who you've always been radiant, eternal, whole steps gently forward. So if you've been searching for answers, chasing after healing, trying to vibrate higher, maybe this is your reminder to pause, to drop into the sacred hush beneath it all. To remember that your most powerful transformation doesn't begin with movement, it begins with stillness. And in that stillness, your true self waits not to be discovered, but to be remembered. Somewhere between your heartbeat and the hum of the cosmos, there's a sound. Not just any sound, a primordial vibration. A tone so pure it bridges the seen and the unseen. A single frequency, said to do what few forces in this universe can, align spirit and matter. The ancients believed this sound wasn't something you created, it was something you remembered. Whispers of it echo in the chants of lost temples, in the carved spirals of forgotten stones, in the dreams passed down through bloodlines. And when Thoth spoke of divine harmonics, he wasn't speaking in metaphor. He meant actual resonance, sound as a co-creator, vibration as architecture. Modern science is finally catching up. Through cymatics, the study of sound made visible, we can now watch what the ancients already knew. A tone played through water or sand doesn't just make noise. It makes shape. Patterns emerge. Geometry blooms. And when certain frequencies are used, like 528 Hz or 432 Hz, the patterns aren't just beautiful. They're sacred, mirroring the forms found in nature, in DNA, in galaxies. 528 Hz is often called the miracle tone. Some say it repairs DNA, others call it the frequency of love. But beyond all theories, what matters is what you feel when you hear it, as if something inside you recognizes the tone, even if your mind doesn't know why. 432 Hz, by contrast, is gentler, more grounding, said to align with the rhythms of the earth, with the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of our planet. It doesn't lift you out of your body, it roots you deeper into it. Not escaping the world, but harmonizing with it. What both tones reveal, and what Thoth hinted at long ago, is that sound is not just something to hear. It's something to become. And so the question becomes, what if you're not broken? What if you're just out of tune? What if this one sound isn't a secret buried in ancient scrolls, but a living force already inside you, waiting to be remembered, to be resonated, to be released? Because when you vibrate in alignment, it's not just your body that changes. Your thoughts quiet, your emotions stabilize, your energy becomes coherent. Suddenly, your external world begins to reflect that internal harmony. Relationships shift, clarity emerges, synchronicities multiply. You're no longer divided, no longer chasing, no longer at war within. The sound, whether you hear it through your ears or through the stillness in your chest, becomes a tuning fork for your entire being. So if you've been trying to figure life out, maybe what you need isn't another answer. Maybe it's a frequency, a remembering, a resonance that allows you to be both spirit and matter, not in conflict, but in perfect harmony. And sometimes, all it takes is one sound. It's not always easy to admit, but most of us carry an invisible hum inside, a vibration that never really stops. For some, it's anxiety. For others, a low-grade guilt, a grief too old to name, or a pressure that feels like it's always just beneath the surface. You smile, you meditate, you journal, and yet something remains, unseen, unfelt, unreleased. Thoth had a word for this: disharmony of the inner tone. He taught that sound, true sound, is more than vocal. It's emotional, it's energetic. And if your heart is broadcasting fear while your voice chants peace, the field listens to the fear. The universe doesn't respond to what you say, it responds to what you feel. Modern physics might call it field resonance, but the ancients called it alignment. Your inner state isn't just a private matter, it becomes the tuning fork for your reality. The electromagnetic field of your body, especially your heart, sends out a measurable signal. That signal carries emotion. It shapes probability. It attracts, repels, creates. This is why affirmations don't always work, why visualizations can fall flat. Because underneath the words, the body is vibrating another truth: fear of not being enough, sadness unprocessed, rage swallowed for years. But here's the secret Thoth hinted at. The path isn't to suppress those emotions, it's to tune them. Not to fake joy, but to meet fear with presence. Not to chase high vibes, but to feel what's real deeply, fully, without shame. because only then can the vibration shift. When you allow yourself to feel the heartbreak, the longing, the old sorrow without judgment, it begins to move, to reorganize, to transmute. And that movement, that's the real sound. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it's a sob in the dark, a breath that catches in the chest, a hand pressed to the heart as the memories flood. But that's when the field begins to rewire. That's when your frequency becomes honest, coherent, strong. Thoth once said, "The tone that heals is born of truth, not perfection." So if you've been trying to raise your vibration but feel stuck, pause. Listen, not outside but within. What are you actually feeling? What story does your body keep retelling that your mind won't listen to? To raise your frequency, don't bypass the emotion. Befriend it, witness it, feel it all the way through. Because what you feel truly, openly, authentically is what shapes the field around you. And when the field changes, life follows. You can be doing everything right, the meditations, the breath work, the affirmations, and still feel heavy, not on the outside, but somewhere beneath the skin. A slow drag like you're walking through water. And no matter how hard you try to elevate, something keeps pulling you down. That something is often guilt, not loud or dramatic, just there. Quiet, patient, anchored. Guilt is one of the most misunderstood emotions in the spiritual path. It disguises itself as responsibility, as humility, even as love. But its true nature is weight, and weight doesn't rise at roots. It holds, it binds. Thoth referred to it as the silent chain, a frequency that entangles the soul in cycles of self-punishment, making it nearly impossible to receive or embody higher vibrations. The truth is, sound can't flow freely in a space that is clenched. If your body is tight with shame, if your chest contracts at the thought of what I should have done differently, then even the most sacred chant becomes noise. It bounces off the walls you've built around your worth. And yet there's a way through. Not by denying guilt or pushing it away, but by letting it rise. By witnessing it, naming it, and then gently forgiving. Forgiveness is not a grand performance. It doesn't need candles or chants or cosmic permission. It begins with breath. Right here, right now. Inhale not to force light in, but to open space. Exhale not to escape, but to release what no longer needs to be held. Imagine this. Each breath becomes a soundless chant, a wave of compassion that softens the inner grip. With every inhale, you create room for mercy. With every exhale, the anchor loosens. This is how the vibration shifts when you stop arguing with your past, when you stop punishing yourself for being human, when you say to the child inside, "You were doing your best," and that is enough. Only then does the tone of transformation enter, not as a shout, but as a hum. Subtle, sacred, soft. That hum finds the cracks guilt left behind and sings light into them. Forgiveness doesn't make you forget. It makes you free. And in that freedom, the frequency rises not through effort, but through allowing. There are words we speak every day. Words that explain, describe, and define. But then, there are sounds that don't belong to language at all. Sounds that can't be translated, only felt. These are not words to be understood. They are chants to be remembered. Ancient mystics called them sacred tones, not because they were tied to any religion, but because they bypassed the mind and went straight to the soul. Sounds like HU, Om, or Ra brief, raw vibrations that carried codes older than memory. Thoth often spoke in such sound syllables that seemed nonsensical to the ear, yet stirred something primal inside. They were not chants you learned. They were sounds you recognized, like a forgotten name echoing from within. Each soul, it is said, has its own chant a secret frequency that unlocks the vibration of their essence. It's not about the voice, not about pitch, tone, or correctness. It's about resonance, alignment, intention. You could whisper it in your mind or speak it into the wind. What matters is the feeling behind the sound. When you chant not to perform, but to activate, something shifts. The air around you feels different. The thoughts in your head quiet. The field of energy surrounding your body begins to pulse subtle, then strong. This isn't imagination. Sound, when used with heart, is power. Science calls it entrainment. Spirit calls it remembering. And you're not meant to repeat someone else's tone like a script. You're here to call forth your own. So try this, close your eyes. Place one hand gently on your chest, the other on your belly. Breathe. Then let a sound come through, any sound. No judgment, no filter, just let it rise. It might be a hum, a syllable, a strange tone that surprises you. Don't chase it. Don't name it, just feel it. Let that sound vibrate inside your body, not to fix anything, but to awaken what has always been waiting. Because the chant isn't the activation, you are. And the moment you allow that sound to move through you, fully, freely, the field responds. The frequencies shift. Your inner world begins to organize around that resonance, not as effort, but as invitation. It's not about loudness, it's about truth. And the chant that is true for you will never ask you to become someone else. It will only remind you of who you already are. You've been trying so hard to feel better, think brighter, vibrate higher. Maybe you've followed every method, said every affirmation, lit every candle, and still something feels tight. But what if the breakthrough doesn't come from trying more, but from trying less? There's a sound, soft and subtle, that doesn't arrive when you force it. It emerges when you stop. You stop trying to vibrate high and simply allow the vibration to be. This isn't giving up, it's giving space. Like a leaf floating on water, like breath released with no demand. It's the moment you stop running towards something and realize it's already here. You don't raise your vibration by reaching for the light. You remember it was always within you, waiting for a pause. So pause, let go of effort. Let go of fixing. Just let yourself float in the silence beneath all sound. Because in that silence, the truest vibration finds you. You were never meant to chase the light, you are the light remembering itself. All this time, you've been searching for a frequency high enough, pure enough, powerful enough to shift your life. But Thoth didn't leave behind the sacred codes so you could become someone new. He left them so you could remember who you've always been. The frequency you seek is not out there. It's not a chant or a secret syllable hidden in ancient stone. It's the still hum within you, the one that rises only when the mind quiets and the heart softens. When you stop reaching and begin listening, you'll notice something. A single tone, faint at first but unmistakable. It's yours. It always has been, so breathe, be still. You don't have to strive anymore. You only have to return. You are not separate from the sound. You are the sound.